Oops. Whoops. We're having an issue on the Twitter. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bill.
Hey.
But you might need to reconnect that. But we're live on the other platforms. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. Hey.
It's all good. But Buff Nation, what's going on? I know that we got a ton of you coming in here right now. So please hit a like. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. We have Devin Rispress coming here, and I'm going to talk about a handful of different items with my good friend, Bill Carroll from Draft Central, NFL Draft Scout. How's it going tonight?
Just fine. And shout out to Team MBS Media, for whom I do most of my work, and then also Zinni 62 Media, who I do also some work for, both of whom have been incredibly supportive and helpful throughout this part of my career. This is an exciting time for me because some people, yes, Miss Jobs, yes. If you watched that absolute monster they built at FAMU, at Florida A&M University, you know that Devin Rispress is not here to play. He's not here to joke with you. He's here to work the transfer portal, which already clearly this program understands better than most, but also you're going to see 3 stars and even the occasional 4-star player from Florida who are high school guys. I mean, Deion said, and he said, the first year was sort of a fluke. That this is not going to be the normal way to do things. They're not going to bring in, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39 transfer guys year after year. That's just not how.
You 35 high school guys.
Right, exactly. You can't sustain a program that's more than half 1 or 2 year guys, right? You have to have the heart of your program be high school recruits. But look at a good example is Kansas State, to go back to a Big 12 program that had a lot of success. And there wasn't so much transfers, so they had transfers. Well, transfers, but not 4-year transfers. But what made Kansas State in the heart of Kansas State's run of being really good was they did a great job of working that Jayhawk Conference JUCO, right? Yeah. All those kids from Coffeyville and Fort Scott and what's that? The Hutchinson and all the others, right? Terrific junior college programs in the state of Kansas. They worked them better and more than anybody else did. And they were there for everybody to take advantage of, but that particular program took them more seriously, recruited them more and better, and built. They also did a good job working, obviously, high school recruitment, but they did a great job in that. And I think that's the other thing you're going to see. You're going to see a sprinkling of JUCO guys, but mostly it's going to be, you'll be a national recruiter, Dave. I don't know how you feel about being a national recruiter, but you're going to be getting guys from California, Arizona, not the Nevada area, right? Thanks to Las Vegas. There's a lot of really good high school football being played in the state of Nevada. You couldn't have said that 30 years ago, but now you can. We saw from the DeMarco Murray era forward. That's why I've used DeMarco Murray as my line of demarcation, where you would get the occasional good football player out of Nevada. And then from the DeMarco Murray era onward, it's not quite Georgia, obviously, or Florida or California or Texas or even Pennsylvania. But Nevada has gone from being a place that was sort of a flyover state. Yeah. BYU, Boise, Mountain West teams, the old, Big Sky, all the Big Sky teams and things like that would work that area. But you didn't get much interest outside of Nevada, Reno, now just called Nevada, I guess. They dropped the Reno part. And UNLV and, a few other programs didn't pay that Division I or FBS program. Just ignore Las Vegas because there wasn't great high school football there until fairly recently. And now, like I said, it's just churning guys out. So that's also, and which is why UNLV is also on the, watch that program, right? Watch that program. That program, they lost a few guys to the portal, but they're going to be just fine. That's going to be a consistent 8 to 10 win program. Mark my words.
Okay.
But back to your program, back to Colorado, you're going to see a mix of a sprinkling of JUCO, probably 60-ish% high school, and then 35-40% guys from the portal. And eventually, I think that'll drop down in a couple of more years to maybe more like 25 to 30% guys from the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you get to establish your culture based on guys that are there for 3 to 5 years, much better than 1 to 2 year guys. I mean, that's just math.
Yeah. Facts. And Bill, I got to give you your props. I know it's been a while since I had you on the show, but man, I mean, you were right. You were right about this CU team. You said, hey, it might not be the prettiest first year. I'm more of an optimistic guy. I'm always going to have the optimistic view, but we saw success there early on. We saw the lack of ability to adjust kind of once we got into conference play, which led us to where we're at right now. But I wanted to give you your props and kind of give also ask you to kind of give your analysis on on Coach Prime's first year.
Yep.
I don't know if you give out grades or anything like that, but I would love for you to
sure.
If there are any names that come off of maybe some good comps.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
So let's walk through what actually happened. This is not, to me, a failure, right? I don't consider this year a failure. I told you, you should celebrate if you get to 5 wins. I mean, I know that you obviously expected better, but I said 5 wins is something you should celebrate. Like, that's not a bad year when you think about where this program's coming from. That's still a 400% improvement. So if you improve 400% over anything, anywhere, you should be celebrated, right? So if you can't do that again, right? You can't. I mean, I can't, but it'd be like, you can double though. You could conceivably be a 7 or 8 win program next year. My prediction is 6, but 7 is completely doable. I think that 2 things you're going to see. One is you're going to, even when you lose, you're going to lose differently. I don't know if that makes you feel better or not, but you won't simply get shoved around. The games that you lost this year, teams just literally threw you out of the club, right? You got deboed, to use the term that we occasionally use in my neighborhood. What you got on my drink. So yes, you just got out muscled, and that will not be the case. You saw how much of the emphasis has been built on the interior of both the offensive and defensive line.
Yes.
And that won't stop. I promise you, next year and the year and whatever, however many years, you're going to continue, because you can't understand how hard it is to find, first of all, athletic 320-pound human beings. They are not easy to find. Just the next time you're walking around your neighborhood, see how many 320-pound human beings you can find who are really athletic, like can do cartwheels and jump and run. I mean, it's not every day you see those. So that's the old George Young and Dwayne Bill Parcells planet theory. There only some of these people on the planet. When you find one, grab them.
Okay.
One thing. 2, you're going to start losing people also, right? You've already seen it, right? So it's a sign of success when people start looking to your program to not only find talent like players, but also start grabbing your coaches, right? Somebody's going to say, oh, that's a really good strength and conditioning coach. Oh, wow, your recruiting coordinator is great. Oh, hey, your wide receivers coach is killing it, right? So that's a compliment. It's a painful and expensive compliment, but it's a compliment. Mm-hmm. And the good programs build that in, right? I'm not going to talk too much about Coach Saban. One thing Coach Saban was sort of a pioneer of is building a deep bench of coaches, right? Mm-hmm. So he would have a bunch of guys sometimes taking essentially demotions to come work for him. Mm-hmm. Guys who were head coaches would come and be coordinators. Guys who have been coordinators would come and be position coaches. Guys who were position coaches would come and be quality control. Sometimes even guys who were head coaches would come and be analysts, right? Not even coaches, technically speaking, which is how he got around the rules about how large your staff can be. Oh, these guys aren't coaches. They just watch tape and talk to coaches. That's not coaching. Know the letter of the law, I guess, is what that teaches us. And he's revolutionized the coaching industry, because not everybody's trying to do that as well. But you're going to get some poaching, right? You're going to see people pulling people away. I knew you wanted to talk about Devin Rispress, and I do want to talk about Devin Rispress. Yeah. For those of you who don't watch Florida A&M football, please do. You'll enjoy it, I promise you. But he brought in people in his time there that went from being walk-ons to being NFL prospects, right? He brought in people and they developed them. It was a terrific program they built. They were the best, by far, the best HBCU team in college football, right? Whoever you would have brought to them, they would have handled. They were a terrific program. And much of that can be chalked up to the efforts of one Devin Rispress. And, in losing him, it's certainly going to hurt them, but they're going to survive that. That is a good, solid, well-constructed program. But the things that he learned, the things that he did, and the ways in which he improved in doing what he does, he's going to take that and then build on that, because he's going to have resources available to him that unfortunately no HBCU could ever hope to be able to match. That's just, once again, just factual, whether you like it or not. That's just a factual statement. And shout out to Coach Rispress for getting himself into the situation, but also shout out to Coach Prime and his staff for realizing who this man is and being smart to snap him up, because he wasn't going to be out there too much longer. I promise you. He wasn't the only person looking. I'll tell you that much.
Who are some guys from FAMU that you said that went from walk on to contributor to NFL hopeful? Who are some of those guys that, if we got some time to be on YouTube, look up some highlights, look up some tape, who should be some guys that we're checking out from that program that Rispress had some influence with?
They had a few, and I'll start with their quarterback, Jeremy Moussa, Moussa. And statistically speaking, he was even better last year than this year. But as a leader, as a guy that everyone rallied around, as a guy who showed mental and physical toughness, while the numbers weren't quite as gaudy, he was even better as a guy that everyone looked to when the going got tough, which frankly didn't happen that often for FAM this year. They steamrolled some people, but they had a couple of tough games. And when they did need him to be at his best, he was at his best. So I will start with him. I'll start with Jeremy Moussa. For those that, like I said, are unfamiliar, he's got good size, maybe 6'2.5", probably shade under 6'3", but not much under 6'3". Probably comes in the high 2 teens, the low 220s. I would say not elite, not a cannon, but he can make the throws that you need a quarterback to make. Yeah. Not a runner, but a good athlete who can navigate the pocket and can break the pocket at times even and pick up, he's a guy that might get you 6, 7, 8 yards. He's not a guy who's going to, turn the corner and go. At Vanderbilt, speaking of transfer, at Vanderbilt guys from Chino Hills, California. I mean, that tells you, right? That tells you what we're talking about. A guy that makes his way from there to Vandy, from Vandy to FAM. And will go down as one of the great Florida A&M quarterbacks, in the history of the program, which has had some guys. I mean, Kenny Riley, of course, is a Hall of Fame defensive back, but he was a terrific quarterback, both in high school, a high school legend, and then goes to Florida A&M and plays for the legendary Jake the Snake Gaither and sets a whole bunch of records, some of which stood until the last few years. That's how good a quarterback he was. Wow. But yeah, if not for the fact that he was black when it wasn't cool to be black, he would have been an NFL quarterback. The crazy thing is the guy made the Hall of Fame in a position he never played a day in his life till he got to an NFL camp. That's the kind of guy Kenny Riley was. But to the guy we're discussing, Mr. Moussa, though, like I said, it wasn't as gaudy a season. It was a still very solid season in terms of stats. And he was a guy that, put up almost 3,000 yards passing, well, almost 2,900, 2,893, and had 22 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, had 1 or 2 bad games, but no terrible games. And here's the game I want to highlight. Playing up, right? Up a level of competition against South Florida. Look at the stats from that game. 24-43, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. 3 interceptions, not great. But he fought like heck all throughout that game, kept them in that game. And, they had something for everybody else, right? I mean, obviously you're playing up a level when you go against South Florida, but that really is his only really bad game of the season. He had, a couple of games that weren't great, but that was the one we point to and say, okay, that was a rough outing. Well, I take it back. He also had a pretty bad game with Mississippi Valley State. But other than that, like I said, it was a little less gaudy. Like last year, if you want to see like pop your eyes out numbers, look at his stats from last year. But this year, solid in, like I said, 2 bad games, but was really good in almost every other game. You watch the tape, you'll see that even against very good teams, right? He normally had very good games. Jackson State's still good. And, his numbers weren't, once again, pop your eyes out, but he managed that game. And that was one of the tougher teams they played against. They got out of there with a win, at least in part due to him being careful and, like I said, managing the game, which he's capable of doing.
Man, I absolutely love that. Bill, if it's okay, I got another question here that I want to ask you about regarding coaching. It's kind of been floated out there, reported. I would imagine that we hear who these coordinators are soon with school and team meetings starting up soon. But I guess we can start on the offensive coordinator side of things. We haven't officially had an offensive coordinator named. It seems like what everybody close connected to the program is saying is that it's probably Pat Shurmur, who was here this past year as an analyst, promoted to play caller last few games.
Yep.
What's your reaction? What's your analysis right now? And Pat Shurmur, I can't remember a time where he took or where he called plays in college before this past year, but would love to hear your take on him being a college offensive coordinator full time.
Well, obviously you're talking about an extremely experienced coach, right? A guy who, maybe has been coaching maybe as long as you've been alive, David. I probably close to it. I may be
31,
exaggerating.
So yeah.
Maybe I'm not exaggerating. That might be about right. But yeah, Coach Shurmur's been around, and of course he's a coaching lifer. He's from a family of coaching lifers, right? Fritz Shurmur. You find this very often in football families. The Harbaughs, but he's been. Yeah, no, I'm not wrong. He has been coaching as long as you've been alive. So he became a graduate assistant. Let me see. Oh, before you were born. So yeah, he's been coaching longer than you've been alive. So if you want to count from his graduate assistant days longer, he's been coaching longer than you've been alive. So you're getting someone who's extremely experienced. Coached with Saban more than once, right? Was with Saban back in the Michigan State days. He's coached in the NFL at 5, maybe 4 or 5 different NFL teams, maybe more.
Eagles, Vikings,
a bunch, yeah.
New York. Was he in Dallas at some point? I don't know.
He's been a lot of places. He's coached a lot. He's coached a lot of places. He's the nephew, as I said, of Fritz Shurmur, who coached forever. Also, father of Kyle Shurmur, who I think maybe on somebody's practice squad. Don't quote me on that. But the point is that this guy has coached for a very, very, very long time. Knows the NFL game. Is somewhat familiar with the collegiate game. He did coach the collegiate game. He, was a guard and a linebacker initially when he was playing at Michigan State. Settles in eventually, on the finally picks a side of the ball, becomes a graduate student who, plays while getting, moving towards coaching. He was a guy that working on his master's degree, trying to figure out what he wants to do next. Then after a little time as an assistant at Michigan State, graduate assistant initially, then he coaches tight ends, offensive line, special teams, goes to Stanford, and starts coaching offensive line, then makes his way to the Eagles and worked his way up from being a position coach. He coached offensive line, tight ends, eventually quarterbacks, and then eventually was a coordinator. Was a person who spent time later with the Rams, Eagles twice, I think. The Vikings, as you mentioned, he's been around. He's spent time with the Giants and Broncos as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. My Broncos. How could I forget? But head coach of the New York Giants, right?
Yeah, he was at least interim head coach, I believe.
I think he had a couple years there.
He might have even been. Yeah, I'm going off.
It was his job with Case Keenum that he did in Minnesota that got him that Vikings job. That's what it was.
Yep. And deservedly so. I mean, now Case Keenum was a guy that always, I think was very, very smart and accurate. Didn't have the world's strongest arm, but threw with really good touch and anticipation. And he built things around Case Keenum, including, having really good receivers like Stephon Diggs. It doesn't hurt when you've got guys like that. It doesn't hurt when you've got guys like Thielen. And they had a nice little talent mix around him. Carlson and, let's not go down too far that path. But the point that we're making is that you're going to see they're going to change the run game for the better. I think
let's break this down a little bit. Yeah.
Let's. Okay, so everybody's too strong a word, but most teams that are some form of triple option, most college teams that are not some form of triple option, most of them run a lot of some version of zone scheme. Not all, but most. It's very popular, extremely popular. The thing about zone scheme is it takes a while to sync up. Should we break down what I mean when I say zone scheme? Or does people
yes.
Okay,
yes.
Got it. Okay, so similar to the way that when you're playing defense, you can either be defending a man or defending a place. Like if you're playing zone, you're defending an area of the field. If you're playing man, the old thing about, what we call cat, right? I got that cat, you got that cat. Wherever that guy goes, you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the simplest form of defense in the world. It's just simply to man up. And now we have hybrids that are a mix of zone and man, which
correct.
Another show. But but when you're zone blocking, you are saying anybody that comes into this area, when I take this step to the left or this step to the right, they're getting a face full of me. I don't care if you're a safety. I don't care if you're a linebacker. I don't care if you're a defensive tackle, a defensive end, whoever it is. When I step into this area, if you are on this side of my body, you're getting it, right? Unless I'm going this way. And then if you're on this side of my body, you're getting it, whoever you are. Mm-hmm. If you are a man blocking scheme, you're blocking a man. You got the 3-tech, you got the 4-eye, you got the 5, you got the Mike linebacker. You're helping out on the 3-tech, and then you're sliding off that duo block and going up and getting the Sam linebacker, cutting him off, or you're getting the Mike. So you have to know who it is you're blocking in that scheme, right? And you're blocking whoever that is. So if that guy moves, you got to kind of try to get to where he is, because no one else is assigned to that guy. Yeah. That's your guy. So that creates problems the same way that man coverage can create problems if they do things like switch release or, do those, what they call rub plays on offense. But yeah. So those things create problems for you if you're playing true man defense. Same thing with man blocking. If this guy runs a TE stunt or these other things where it's like, oh crap, where'd my guy go? Now you're chasing this dude. And no offense to offensive linemen, generally that guy is a more athletic person than you are. Yeah. There are exceptions, but generally speaking, they play defense because they're slightly more athletic. But offensive linemen are slightly smarter, at least in general. They've done studies. I'm not just talking. They've actually done studies that the measured the things they do to measure, intellectual whatever tends to favor offensive lineman over defensive lineman. I played defense. I prefer defensive players, but these are the numbers. But in a zone scheme, so you have a step that it has to be sort of synced up, and everyone's moving in this whatever direction.
Yeah, Bill, right? I don't know if you see this thing that I got up here with the Seahawks. I don't know if this is helpful. It's
extremely helpful. So it doesn't matter who's in the gap or who's in the zone. And if there's nobody there, I either, depending upon what my scheme calls for, can just look for work, is the term, right? And I look to my left and look to the right. Is somebody getting bullied? Then I help that person. Or I scoot, right? I head up and I find some poor unsuspecting, but wasn't itself to be in my track, in my zone. But even if I extend my zone forward up the field, I still can't start drifting to this way or drifting that way for two reasons. Okay. For two reasons. One is I'm now opening up. If someone does loop around or whatever, now I've made a hole for them. One. And then two, I can actually get in somebody else's way, right? Because that's not my place. I shouldn't be drifting left, right. I should be on my track and continue on my track. But yes, I am allowed to look for work. In fact, I'm encouraged to look for work, right? You get a little check mark when they see you looking for work.
Good.
But I want to make sure that they're in my area. But if it's a corner, if it's a safety, I mean that's what offensive linemen love. Oh, get over here, get in my belly. So I continue on up my track and I toss this dude out of the club. So if I'm a really good zone runner, and you got the perfect guy right there, beast mode. Mm-hmm. There are few better in the history of the game. Arian Foster, there's a few, but it's a short list of guys that understood how to be a good zone runner. Terrell Davis maybe is the king, but these guys are princes of understanding how to be a great zone. Clinton Porter is also really good at it because you have to be patient and you have to see certain things but the things you see, you're not just seeing a flash of color, right? When you're Barry Sanders, you're just going based on flashes of color, right? You're just going this way or going that way. That's why it's so fun and exciting. But he's the opposite of what you want to be a good zone runner, right? Because you can't just keep jitterbugging around. That's the opposite of what you want.
You want to see what's happening before it happens, right?
Before it happens, and then you want to suck in on the hip of, let's just for giggles, let's just say the left guard is the guy that you're supposed to be sucking up on his hip. And he may be waiting for a while because he thinks somebody's coming. He may say, oh, no one's here. Oh, wait, but I think somebody's, because these guys are smart. Somebody's coming. So he kind of pity pats for a second and then goes out on his track. And he takes that read step. And sure enough, there's a linebacker coming, right? So this linebacker that you've got up here, right? Who Jonathan the Mike line, right. In this case, Mr. Jonathan Vilma. And Jonathan Vilma is also really good at doing what? Reading blocks. Say what you want about Jonathan Vilma. So he sees what's coming. He tries to get underneath that block because he realizes if he takes this guy on head up, he's unlikely to win that fight. So he's thinking, maybe I can scrape and get backside of this guy as he goes on his track and then shoot through and get to beast mode. This guy's smart, right? He sees that. He sees that Vilma wants to do that. Pity pats for a second, starts on his track, and then when he sees Vilma, he doesn't veer, but he turns his body a little bit. Now I'm almost hiding behind him, that as soon as he turns and engages with Vilma, I'm off that back hip and I'm out. And now if I can beat this guy, you've got one linebacker left over here, and probably, though I can't see him, probably a corner also. Yeah. Now, if my wide receiver is a really good blocker, that corner might be too late to get to the party. Mm-hmm. But if he's a bad blocker, like most wide receivers, I may have to defeat him once I get over here. But my tight end, depending on he's probably going to help out for here, but he knows this guy isn't going to catch me from behind, right? No offense, Mr. Defensive End. But once he's done, 1,000, 2,000, he can take off, right? Because he knows, heck, this is Marshawn Lynch. He's not getting caught from behind by a defensive end. He's out. Now he's looking for work. If the free safety comes over, he goes gets him. That corner that beat the wide receiver, he goes and gets him. So now it's me and that one guy left, right? If there's a deep middle safety, a linebacker who sank deep, now it's that guy versus Marshawn Lynch. And if you're an offensive corner, you like your chances in that situation. Yes. You really do. So the thing about zone blocking is it requires a lot of patience by everyone, right? Both the line and the back. Backs that get jittery and just want to go will never become great. They can become okay, but they're going to have a lot of times they literally run themselves out of big plays because they didn't have enough patience to wait for things to develop. So you're going to see, they're not going to junk this. I'll make it clear. They're not throwing all this away, but you're going to see some more gap and some more man stuff. They're going to mix it up. That's my prediction, at least. I want
to pull up a man blocking, and let's walk through that because this is fantastic. Let's grab this power O. This would be a good one.
Oh, yes.
With Frank Gore. How about that?
So, Frank Gore could do anything. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the biggest. But, my God, that guy know how to be in the right place as a running back. So smart. Yeah. Such a smart
I love Frank Gore. Okay, right here. Let's check this one out.
The inconvenient. Okay, here we go. So, the difference here is that each of these guys has a particular guy. Sometimes your guy isn't where you're expecting him to be. Sometimes your guy doesn't even come, right? So somebody's assigned to wait for the Mike linebacker. The Mike linebacker decide, you know what? I'm just buzzing out to the flat in case it's a pass. Okay, fine. So once again, you look for work. The difference here is you don't have to stay in your area. You can go wander around a bit. Now you need to be careful how you do it, but because once again, you could end up running into your back or, being tripped over, all kinds of things like that. But we're pulling, right? And we're pulling with mean intentions. So you've got this gentleman right here we're gonna pull the backside guard. Why do we pull the backside guard? Because it's fun. And it gives, right? What's the term Brian Baldinger always use? Elephants on parade. Yes. So it gives this guy a chance with a full head of steam to go find a 232-pound linebacker and make him wonder why he decided to ever play football. So he's going to pull out. If it's a skip pull, he's going to stay close to the line of scrimmage. If it's a full pull or a regular pull like this one is, he's going to a few yards behind the line of scrimmage so he can get that full head of steam going. So you're sacrificing a little bit of how much time it takes him to get there for the full bodily impacts that he gets to bring to it. With a skip pull, you're saying, I want to get you there faster. You won't knock this guy into next week, but you'll get there faster. So it's it's a philosophical thing. But the 49ers, both then and now, are more than happy to wait for the time it takes for this guy to deliver full kinetic energy into the chest of that unfortunate linebacker. So you're going to have Vernon Davis is going to go, oh boy, he's a powerhouse. Oh, this is not a good day for the linebacker. So Vernon Davis, who is technically speaking undersized at 6'2.5" or whatever, at 253 pounds, but like Luke Cage strong, is going to go out there. He's going to work up to that level, exactly right, and make that guy's life a living heck. You're going to get a double team on the defensive end preceding that, what we call duo, right? You're going to get a chip.
Right, yeah.
Yep. And then he works his way to the second level. You get a chip on the mic, which is, essentially just slowing the mic up enough that he doesn't get to the point of attack before you get the yardage you want.
Mm-hmm. We got a little fullback right here. I don't know if you...
Yeah, because the 49ers love fullbacks. Even now. I mean, there were a handful of teams that actually... Kyle Juszczyk, is a real part of their offense.
Yes.
You can't say that about most fullbacks. So, yeah, he's going to work out here, and he's going to do two things. One is he's going to secure that edge, but also, if somebody is coming, if there's a blitzer, he's got that guy. To make sure, once again, that nobody gets to the ball carrier before he gets to that now big old hole that's going to be opened up by what? Pulling that backside guard. So we love doing it because it's fun and it's painful for linebackers. So he's going to come up through here, and sometimes there's nobody there when he gets there, but usually there's somebody trying to fill. But if nobody comes in to fill, he gets to keep running. Now it really gets interesting because this guy's got, now at some point he's going to gas out. But by the time he gasses out, it's a big play anyway. But he's going to come out here, and if nobody comes over, nobody wants any of it, he keeps going. Somebody eventually should come over, maybe a safety, maybe a corner, or once again, one of the linebackers. So if the mic doesn't want any of this, you might see, like I said, this guy might come instead of being, he might shoot in, right? Okay, he might realize, oh crap, I need to come in here. So once again, the tight end can work off, get some of that. But guess what? Oh, just when you think that's over, bam, there's fullback in your face. Yeah, so it's not fun for him either. And now you still got a backside guard pulling through here. And Frank Gore, who's a freaking genius of a running back, is going to look like he's going full speed, but he's not. Mm-hmm. And then what's going to happen is once he sees that crevice that's opened up by that puller coming, boom, 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 bam, or if there's nobody to bam, he's just running behind him. And as soon as he realizes it's no longer good business to stay, behind the truck, he'll pull out either inside or outside of the truck, depending upon where the leverage is. And he's good enough to make somebody miss. And then if indeed, let's say all these dudes come flowing over here. Let's say now you've created a cutback lane, right? So sometimes that happens. Some guy says, oh, okay, we see what's happening. I'm going to go over there. You know what? So am I. Mm-mm. Right. If two people do one person's job, bad things happen on defense. Because let's say we don't get both of them, right? Let's say the tight end gets one, the puller gets another, and now it's just you, the last remaining guy, and Frank Gore coming through just outside the hole, right? Frank Gore's coming through the hole. If he makes that guy miss, it might not be good. So So you have to be careful with your eyes, right? Because when you're a linebacker, it's really easy to say, "Oh, I see it. I know it's coming," and then run, go get it, right? Because it's built in your DNA. That's why you're a linebacker. But you've got to be careful how you do it, because if you just run and go after everything you see, and it's not your job to be in that gap. When somebody cuts back, if Frank Gore cuts back, if all these dudes are blocked up, this guy isn't blocked, but he makes him miss, and all these guys are blocked up. If the safety has now come down to get involved, and he's now, the depth is like, oh, I'm now here, and now Frank Gore is there. Now, Frank Gore is not a speed demon. You might run him down, but it'll be 25, 30, 35 yards down the field, and now you're getting reamed in film study. So, yeah. It's not a good day to be in film study after you've – yeah, because all you had to do was not do that, right? I mean, that's all the whole thing about safety was my position, David. They tell you, like, day one, when you come to safety school, or you would call it, first time you're in that, you got to be what? Deeper than the deepest, wider than the widest. There'll be times you'll get beat, but don't get beat because you took the cheese. Don't get beat because you got nosy. Yeah, so you're going to see more of this kind of action.
Okay.
And you're going to get more guards who fit that kind of thing. So you've been really run deficient, for lack of a way of putting it. Like, I'm trying to be I mean, you guys have thrown the ball around beautifully, but your quarterback has taken a hellacious beating. I promise you that Coach Sanders, who loves his son dearly, is not going to allow that to happen again.
Thanks.
You're going to see more of a running game. And once again, obviously guys who are better in pass pro, but you're going to see them take some of the pressure off them just by running the ball more and better. And they're going to run it different ways. So, yes, you'll still see some inside zone and outside zone. Don't get me wrong. But I promise you're going to see some counter tray. You're going to see some power O. You're going to see, some G lead plays. I promise you will.
I love that. Is there, a scheme, man or zone that you think would be easier to pick up for a new offensive line together?
Zone is always more difficult, just like in defense. Zone is harder to learn because it's more stuff to remember.
Yeah.
So you have to remember certain milestones or certain what's the word I'm looking for? Landmarks. Thank you.
Yes.
While if you're it's just a dude. That's your dude. Go get that dude. It's not. It's not as much thinking in a man scheme. Not to say there aren't sometimes rules about when you look inside, when you look outside, stuff like that. I want to make it sound like it's no brainer, but it's less brainer certainly than zone. Just like defense, the zone is always more brain work than playing man. It comes to blocking as well. Anything that involves you having to read things as opposed to just go get some dude is going to be harder. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. I think, one thing that I'm really excited about is the new interior lineman that we have coming in here. Tyler Johnson from Houston, I think will slot in at that right guard position. Justin Mayers, guard from UTEP. Had a ton of offers, one of the highest rated guards in the portal this year.
Really good football player.
Yes. Any other insights right now into what you can expect from the offensive line, running game? Coach Lodeholt, does that open up another can of worms?
Yeah. So things to look for. I think you're going to see more things done in coverage, partially because some of the guys who did, once again, it's not a whole new team this year like last year. There are some holdovers, so you can do more things coaching-wise when you have guys who are at least their second year in the system. So they can do some more things in terms of coverage. I think you're going to see also I think you're going to see them vary tempo more this year. You're still going to go up-tempo, but don't be surprised if you don't slow it down more also for two reasons. One is because you might be putting more offense in, and so some of the play calls, some of the play design and play sequencing may be a little more involved, more information being disclosed and put in there. But yeah, I'm with you on some of the guys that are coming in. I think you're going to see an uptick in offensive line aggression, for lack of a better way of putting it. Your offensive line last year wasn't bad, but it was a little passive. And even in pass pro, some people think pass pro automatically means passivity. Not necessarily. You could be aggressive in pass pro. Now you have to be smart aggressive in pass pro. You can't be getting too far over your skis. but you can still put your hands on people and make them feel you, even in pass pro. I think you're going to see an uptick in good old-fashioned violence, quite frankly, sir.
I'm not going to complain about that. I absolutely love it. Now, Bill, I know that for this next portion, what I did tell everybody today is that we're going to discuss a little bit of guys who are going to the NFL that spent this past year at Colorado. I think that there's probably I think there's one shoe-in guy that's going to get drafted. That's Xavier Weaver. Outside of that, probably the other couple guys that I have is maybe day 3 guys, edge Jordan Dominic and safety Rodrick Ward. Would love to hear your thoughts on, I guess we can start with Zay Weaver and then we can kind of move forward to anybody else that you feel like might have pro potential.
Yeah, Zay Weaver is a bet all your money on him going somewhere mid-day 3 kind of guy. He could, with a great workout, push himself even up half a round to a round. But there's enough interest in him at the NFL level that, he will definitely not have to worry about having an NFL home somewhere. A guy that people were really excited about earlier in his career, and it just never panned out for him later in his career, was Kavasier Smoke. Did he make a decision yet? Do you know? He's got 6 more days.
Did, but he also sent a tweet out looking for coaching positions. So I'm not really sure.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens with that. But that was a guy at one point, was a high 3-star and had a good start to his career. And then, things didn't quite work out. I know Alton McCaskill is a guy that had a decision to make. Did he formally say what he's doing?
He ended up redshirting, and so he'll be back this year.
He's definitely back. He's definitely back. Okay. I knew he had an option to return, and I'm glad he exercised that. He would have been an undrafted free agent if he didn't. So he did the right thing. He has a very good chance to be drafted next year with the kind of year I believe he will have. But yes, all the guys you named are guys that are going to play at the next level. And in terms of Zay Weaver particularly, let's start with him just a little bit. The things that allow him, in my opinion, to be a little bit more attractive as a guy who's going to make an NFL roster and may even play some. I mean, people sort of forget that it is not an automatic just because you're a rookie and you make a team that you're going to play even. But I believe you will for these reasons. First of all, he tracks the ball extremely well. When you think about the top tier receivers, Jordan Jefferson, Arthur Brown Jr., Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp. I guess we can put Puka Nacua on that list already, sort of, kind of.
Right.
It didn't take him long to get there. But when you think about whoever your top guys out, Nico Collins is on his way to being there too, people. If you're a dynasty person, you've got Nico Collins already. Woo! You'll get some offers for him soon. Another show. But Xavier Weaver, South Florida kid, was where I first caught my eye. He's slender. He's probably going to come in at 182-ish. He's probably going to come in at maybe just under 6 feet, 5'11". No, maybe 6 feet.
No,
maybe a little
I thought he was like 6'2", wasn't he?
Oh, I mean, no. But he's probably close to 6'1". He's probably like 6 feet and 5'8", 6 feet and 3/4, which is fine. That's more than enough. And decent speed, decent quickness, very fluid, like really fluid. Gets in out of his breaks beautifully, like teaching tape in terms of how he gets transitions in and out of his breaks. That's why he's able to win. He's deceptive, right? One of the things I love to do when I'm scouting a receiver is watch like the first 3 steps and say, do I know what route he's running? If after 3 steps, over half the time I know what route he's running, no matter how talented he is, he's going to struggle when he first gets to the NFL. He's going to struggle because he's tipping his pitches. And while college guys may not always see it, I promise you, NFL cornerbacks are going to see it coming. And they're going to jump things. They'll know when to jump things. They'll know when to back off. And it makes it hard when you tell guys, you're not telling them literally, but you're telling them with the way that you're running your route, what's coming. That's what made, Jerry Rice was the best of this ever. Jerry Rice was, you had no idea what he could be going. You had no idea. It could be a hitch route. It could be a bang 8. It could be a fade. It could be a deep end. You had no idea. you had to play him honestly all the time because he never gave anything away. That's one of Weaver's strengths. He doesn't give away what route he's running. He has good, not elite, but good hands. He doesn't always high point certain things. Sometimes he'll let it come to him a little bit, which makes him play a little shorter than his actual measured height. I'd like to see him be a little more aggressive at the catch point. But despite all that, he is a guy that is definitely going to have a nice NFL career. Probably going to run in the low 4.5s, which is good enough. Could get stronger. I'm sure if we get to the NFL weight room, probably another, say, 7 or so pounds of muscle. I'd like to see
if Robbie Anderson can do it, right?
There we go. That's not a bad. I mean, he's not as fast as Robbie was coming
right.
out, but that's not a terrible NFL comparison. Nicely done, David. I mean, that's the kind of guy he could eventually. Chosen, I think, is actually what he goes by now.
Oh, that's right.
But yes, that's a comparison for what he could be one day.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, he's the guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing at the next level. Hey, my Denver Broncos might be in the need of some receivers on day 3 as well. But let's talk about Jordan Dominic.
Yes.
He's a guy that I've kind of had an interesting take on. Of course, I'm very thankful that he, came here to play at CU. He might have been a victim of just going to, a less talented defense, at least statistically. Kind of had more of a down year compared to, I think, was 3rd in the sacks in the SEC his last year at Arkansas. Where do you kind of see him right now, view him right now in terms of his pro prospects and if he will be drafted?
His testing is going to have a lot to say about this. Currently, my grade on him is an undrafted free agent. And my assumption is he's one of those guys that some team will call towards the end of the draft and say, hey, we're not going to draft you, but that conversation, that hard conversation you have to have. But we really like you. We'd like to bring you in camp. And he's a guy that might be able to negotiate his way because of his old tape, right? This year's tape is not going to make anybody flip out. But he does have enough good tape playing in the SEC West, David, where supposedly, it's the toughest football in America, according to some people. So that tape from the previous season may be enough to start even a little bit of a bidding war, right? So he may be able to squeeze out another maybe $5 to $10,000 in signing bonus as an undrafted free agent just based on that tape. But he also needs to test well. So hope he goes to a really good facility to start working on his body. He'll need to test explosively, particularly in the lower body. He needs a good vertical, he needs a good short shuttle, a good 3-cone, and then enough in the bench, and the field drills to make people think, okay, this guy could be something.
Love it. Have you had much time to take a look at Rod Ward this year? What were your thoughts on him?
Yes, sir. So he's once again a classic fringe prospect. What's the meme? You gotta learn to speak special teams, buddy. But I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong with special teams, and we've seen some games, important games, recently decided by special teams play. For those that don't, honor or realize how important that third phase of the game is. So here's the things that I think will give him a chance. First of all, everything I hear about him in terms of character is super high off the charts character stuff. And that's really important, especially when you're a fringe prospect.
Yes.
They might put up with a certain amount of diva or, antisocial, whatever, when you're a superstar or a stud. When you're a guy that's going to run down on kick coverage, you better be buttoned up.
Right.
Another California kid, right? Beautiful San Jacinto. Went to Southern Utah. So I first came on my radar was his days as a not Skyhawk.
Thunderbird.
Thank you. That's it. Skyhawk is UT Martin. But he had 7 starts this year. A good tackler. Decent, not great ball skills. He did force a fumble. He's a hard-ish hitter, not devastating, but hard-ish hitter. He's probably going to test kind of middle of the pack, 4.58 to 4.62 is what I'm anticipating, somewhere in that range. And he's probably going to weigh in 188, 199 pounds. Maybe cracks the 190 mark. So nothing that jumps out at you and says, "Oh man, this guy's definitely got to have him." But he's also the kind of person that when you talk to him, when you get him in your building, both you're going to say, okay, this kid's solid in all areas.
Yeah.
And if you tell him, I need you to play strong safety, they're not big enough, he'll do it. If you tell me you need to play, hybrid, third, that serve, say, the overhang defender, the spur, he'll do it. I need to play nickel, he'll do it. He's not quite athletic enough, but he'll do it. He might get beat, but he'll take his medicine and still play well. Special teams coaches often fall in love with guys like him. So that's what gives him a definite shot, right? I could see somebody, special teams coach, saying, I love this kid, right? He's once again, good tackler. He's sort of average physically in a lot of ways, but average physically in a lot of ways, guys have had really good careers. I mean, Mark Kelso, right, who had a very long, successful career with the Bills, the ones that went to all those Super Bowls and did not win them. Another William and Mary guy, right? Boy, the Bills love that William and Mary connection, right? Marv Levy coached at William and Mary. Mark Kelso played at William and Mary. McDermott played at William and Mary. If you want to get drafted by the Bills or brought in by the Bills, go to William and Mary. Wow. But yeah. So he could make it because guys who are like him do work hard enough, are mentally smart enough, and they take coaching so well that you think you should cut them because there's a guy who's more talented, more gifted, but then he does something and reminds you of why you don't cut him. And every year, this guy's a guy you think you might cut, but somehow he survives. And that's the kind of guy I think he could be, a guy that has a 5-6 year career, even though every year they think they're going to cut him.
Man, I love it. I'm going to be rooting for him hard. And I can't wait to see what happens with him. Unless there's anybody else that you feel like we should have our eye out for. Well, I guess I'll ask you about this, and then we can get to, now that we've had a full year of Power 5, your assessment right now on the Sanders boys. But a guy that I was really looking forward to that we didn't really see too much from. He had his moments, but is Javon Antonio on a roster just because of his physical archetype, regardless of his inconsistencies in production and his tweeners? Can't seem to find a position that fits him. What do you think?
He's a fascinating test subject, right? Every year, guys like him are brought in. This is how you find out how much teams care about physical testing, right? Every team cares, but some teams care more than others. If he has a fantastic pro day and some team gives him $40,000 in signing bonus, that team cares, right? You know what I mean? That's how you know. He's not going to be drafted, and he shouldn't be drafted. But there might be a bit of a active market for him as an undrafted free agent, especially if he tests through the roof. And he might test through the roof. Remember Derek the Freak Young that the Seattle Seahawks brought in a couple of seasons ago? Don't worry about it. He's a kid from Lenore Rhine who, was raw as a player, but just had oh my God, are you joking? Pro day where you had to double check to make sure the numbers were right. If he has that kind of day at his pro day, there'll be a marketplace for him. I promise you. But yes, is he a tight end? Is he a wide receiver? Does he show he wants to play special? Once again, learn to be special teams, buddy. Because when you are an undrafted free agent wide receiver or undrafted free agent undersized tight end or whatever it is they think you are, you better learn everything you can about special teams, because that's why the freakish athletic ability intrigues me, because I want you running down there knocking somebody's head off, right? And then if we could turn you into a receiver or an undersized tight end or whatever, that's cool. But right now I need you to go down there and make sure that, take care of that gunner or be that gunner. And that's what he's going to have to do right out of the box. I was excited about him as well. Maybe not quite as excited as you, but I had seen him before and thought, oh yeah, this guy could be something. But then that's what you kept saying, right? And then he would have one or two little flashy plays. Be like, oh yeah, he's putting it all together. And then you would not see him anymore for a while. So yes, I agree with you.
Well, a guy that he's always kind of reminded me of, again, without the maybe less of a tweener, but lacked in production because he just couldn't really seem to stay on the field health-wise, but kind of had some nice physicality measurables. Was a 6th-round draft pick from CU a few years ago, Jawan Winfrey, 2019 6th-round pick, and he's kind of hopped around. He was on the Broncos practice squad, and I just looked it up right now. I'm shocked. He's still hanging in the NFL right now with the Indianapolis Colts. And so maybe it's just one of those types of careers for him if he's able to test well and do the work like you were saying, like be willing to excel in special teams, and maybe then we'll figure out an offensive role for you later on at some point.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, Javon Winfrey, once again, he learned to speak special teams, buddy. I mean, that's the first thing, is like he became a great special teams asset. And then he's even seen some time with the 49ers and a few other teams playing actual receiver. So it shows that if you spend a couple of years, running into walls basically for a while, and somebody may give you a chance. He'll need to first show people, like I said, that's what for Antonio. Like I said, learn to speak special teams, buddy. Learn everything you can. Wherever you go to work on what you're working on, your skills camp, your whatever it is, you're working on your 40, your vertical, and catching a bunch of balls from the jugs gun, catch punts, catch kickoffs, practice covering punts. I know you're not doing the live contact stuff, so you can't really practice, but at least work on the concepts of punt coverage, kickoff coverage, blocking punts, blocking field goals. Because he's a really good athlete and he's long. If he turns out a guy that could be really valuable on like field goal block or punt block, that by itself will keep him on an NFL roster for a couple of years.
I love it. I
don't want to forget Taj Alston, who I know also did declare.
Yes.
First of all, David, I'll admit I was surprised. I was surprised that he declared. It wasn't the kind of year that you would think, oh yeah, I got to put myself out in the NFL market. But I guess he just figured, it is what it is. I guess he decided this past season, he had 23 tackles, 5 of those tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, and 2 pass breakups. He was a guy that came from West Virginia, was a little more impressive at West Virginia, but once again, played with more defensive line talent. Yeah. And to my understanding, he's the first prime era Buffalo to declare with 1 or more years of eligibility left. So for the most part, guys have either hit the portal or they've stayed until they've exhausted their eligibility. So this is the first guy. Now the prime era is not very old, but to this point, he's the first guy to leave who actually had some eligibility to still play college left. He's once again a guy that he better test well, right? His tape was underwhelming, and I like him, but he didn't give you much to hang your hat on. He got stuck to blockers a lot, unfortunately. I saw him. I don't know if he gassed out or not. I mean, I noticed that he would sometimes play with good intensity and nice low, like flat back and low in his stance. And then I think maybe just wore down because he would disappear at points in games because he was just getting, he'd start playing high and get ragdolled. He's not a guy who had tremendous core or upper body strength. So once you start playing high and you're a guy that's not super powerful, that bigger, stronger person who was hoping you would start playing higher now can get their full, they can now fully attack you and wash you. So he's got to work on some things physically and technique wise. He's got to use his hands better. Especially when you're not the biggest, strongest cat, you've got to have good hands, right? When you're not, Aaron Donald has great hands also, but when you're not that guy, when you're not a powerhouse, you should work on your hands anyway, right? Go to work out with some MMA guys or Wing Chun, right? Wing Chun Kung Fu is great for guys learning how to use their hands in short area. At one point, the 49ers had, I can't remember the man's name, but they had someone on staff who was a Kung Fu Sifu.
That's cool.
Who worked with their linemen on like short area hand usage based on stuff that he taught in hand to hand and martial arts situations. But he's got a long way to go. I mean, of the guys we've talked about, he's the one that has the hardest time sticking probably because he doesn't have a single thing to really hang your hat on where it's like, oh yeah, well, he brings this to the table. He's not great against the run. He's been better against the pass. I mean, he's not a great pass rusher, but he's been better than this year. And this year, like I said, I think he just maybe played too many snaps. I don't know. There was times, like I said, when I was not thrilled with what I saw from him.
Yeah. It was a tough year.
It was a tough year
for the defense.
Yes, it was a tough year. It was a tough year.
That's for sure. And Bill, I'm extremely appreciative of your time. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would like to finish up here. Hey, talking about kind of where do you see right now Shedeur and Shilo in terms of their NFL draft stock?
Well, they're very different. They're very different from each other. Both in terms of personality and how the NFL sees them. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Shilo might be a guy that might be a grad assistant in a year or two. He might find his way into the league. The one thing that he didn't seem to inherit from his father was incredible explosiveness, right? Shilo is a smart kid and he plays hard. But unless he's really hiding it well, I don't see a lot of speed, which is weird to say, right? But, I mean, that's kind of the weakest part of his game that I've seen so far is his recovery speed, his makeup speed, his getting into the play or chasing things down from the backside. I'll be interested. Like I said, I'll be very interested to see how he actually tests, when they actually time him. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm seeing something wrong. But what I've seen of him thus far doesn't make me feel like he's going to test super, super well. But 3-star recruit, a guy that he couldn't have gone anywhere, but he could have gone, any place in the Sun Belt, CUSA.
Started at South Carolina, right?
Yep, started at South Carolina. Would have had a nice career if he'd gone, like I said, almost any place. Or Steven, I think he stayed at South Carolina. I think he's going to run somewhere in the mid 4.5s.
Yeah.
He's listed at 6 feet. He's probably 5'11" and a quarter, which is fine. He's probably 196, 197 pounds, which is fine. And I like, his intellect. And that's the best thing about him. When I watched him at Jackson State, which is where he really began to sort of get onto my radar. I'd seen him a little bit in his time with South Carolina, but he was really more of a reserve then. Did see him get a pass breakup, got into some tackles, but nothing really stood out to me when I watched him there. And then when he got to Jackson State, I really got to see what he could be. When I watched him on tape at Jackson State, he was productive. He had 35 tackles, 7 assists, and also broke up, I think 8 passes. No, not 8. That's too many. It was 4 interceptions, 2 pass breakups. So a total pass defense of 6. 6 passes defensed.
Would he be a more higher rated safety if, he had come into the league 20 years ago?
He would be more higher rated safety if less, right? Yeah. But the game wasn't so much about being in open space. Yes. Right. So much happens in open areas, and that's where his weaknesses get more exposed. But yes, in this past year, 65 tackles, 13 assisted tackles. 16 of those times he got somebody, at or very close to the line of scrimmage. Like I noticed that he was a guy that got downhill a lot, broke up 3 passes, had an interception, and he gave up some big plays also, but
everyone did.
Everyone did. It's not just him. But I like his effort on screens, like fighting through blocks. Yeah. He's a very willing run defender. He's not a guy, despite being the son of Deion or whatever, he's not afraid to get his nose bloodied, as they say. He'll stick his face in the fan. He'll come down and get, even around where offensive linemen are sniffing around, he's not afraid of them. And his body sort of says corner, but his physical ability says safety. But he has vision. He can hit. He has decent range. He'll put it on you. He won't blast people, but he can put it on you a little bit. And I would say I'd like to see him put on still another 8 to 12 pounds of muscle, especially if he's going to end up maybe playing on the strong side because of some of his coverage limitations.
Yeah.
So for me, he's a strong safety, but in a sort of like nickelback body. So I want to see him, get in the weight room, get active, but he has a chance. I'm not going to say he doesn't have a chance. He has a chance. I would say if his coverage, that's Deion Sanders. So there's a chance that he may improve in coverage. I don't know if he can get great at it just because of his physical limitations, but I think he can get better. If he gets stronger, I don't know how much faster he could get, but if he can maybe just see things quicker so it feels like he's faster, he could turn himself into a late day 3 guy. As of now, my grade on him is undrafted.
Okay. Thank you. What about
now
what about
Shedeur is a very
Shedeur?
different story. Yeah, Shedeur is a very different story. If Shedeur had come out this year, if he were able to come out this year, he would be, to me, in the fight for that, in that 5-6 range. He would be in the fight with, I'd have him above guys like Spencer Rattler.
Yeah.
Above guys like Keaton Slovis, above guys like Phil Jurkovich. Wait, did Jurkovich end up petitioning for an extra year?
Above Bo Nix.
Oh, it'd be a fight. It'd be a fight between those two. It'd be a fight. Shedeur gives you more developmental upside. There's more to happen with him. He's younger, and he's a better pure athlete. Though Nix is a good athlete. Nix is obviously the tougher guy, physically tougher. Though Shedeur showed some real physical toughness this year. Jeez.
Yeah.
But I mean, you don't want a guy built like Shedeur taking those kinds of hits. And to his credit, he kept getting up. But that's another guy who, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of protein powder in the Sanders household. Take the scoop in a little deeper this year, Shedeur. Spend an extra 20 minutes in the weight room. I also want to see Shedeur be better at directing or misleading safeties with his eyes, right? If he can get, some of his picks came when he took the defender to the ball, right? There were some tip balls and other stuff there, but he didn't throw a lot of picks. He did not throw a lot of picks. No. But when he did, it was when he was really fixated sometimes on that receiver, right? Mm-hmm. Do that Kurt Warner thing where you're seeing everything and seeing nothing all at the same time, and guys don't know what the heck you're doing. And I mean, Kurt Warner. That's the advantage of being Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
Hey, Dad, can you? I think I've got Kurt Warner's number, right? Oh, yeah. I got it. I'll call him.
You could just ask Tom Brady for it if he needs
Tom Brady. Ask Tom Brady for it. Right. So he's got good people working with him. But yeah, I need to see him continue to grow in terms of deceiving the defense with his eyes. I want to see him realize when a play is dead a little quicker also.
Yes.
Now, hopefully the offensive line will help him out by not having him to be, put in a waffle iron every third play. But I definitely need to see him realize, hey, I can just throw this away. I can just run for 5 yards and slide or whatever it is. But I do need him to realize, when a play is dead, and hey, sometimes the defense wins. That's okay. As long as you leave the field in one piece, we'll call it even. Yeah. Like I said, improve what you do with your eyes. He gets to his reads fairly quickly, actually, for a guy as young as he is. That's one of the best things he does. It's like he works through them.
Yeah.
But occasionally he'll decide he wants this guy. And you've got to stop being so stubborn, right? Sometimes it's not, that guy isn't the guy. They decided they don't want you to have him. Find somebody else. Like I said, sometimes the play is dead. Get a little stronger. He does a good job of navigating the pocket for the most part. Occasionally, he'll step back when he should be stepping up, but mostly he
drift a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. And the problem, there's two things bad about that. One is you have fewer places to go from there, right? There's not as many options. If you do decide you've got to make something happen with your feet, you've made yourself in a worse situation than if you had moved forward, where you can break the line of scrimmage pretty quickly if you have to and get upfield. Now you've got these guys are coming at you from around here, and maybe someone coming at you this way. You've got to make more people miss if you want to make something happen, if you drift away from the line of scrimmage. So yeah, but those are minor things. Like, you're not talking about, ground up stuff. You're talking about, polishing the diamond. He's a diamond. You just need to polish him.
Yeah. I love it. I'm glad that we're getting him back for this next year. Can't wait. Oh, one last question. Is Travis Hunter a wide receiver or cornerback at the next level? If you had to choose right now, what would you choose?
Well, he's going to try to do both because he's very stuck on this idea. But he clearly is. But to me, he's a corner for two reasons. One is for a corner, he has amazing ball skills. For a wide receiver, he has really good ball skills. But I think if you wanted to be a wide receiver and he put all of his time and energy into it, he could be a top 8 wide receiver in the next class. He's the number 1 corner in the next class, even if he continues to mess around with playing wide receiver. But if he decides to put all of his energy or most of his energy to playing corner, oh, sweet baby. I mean, what he could be. I mean, we're talking like Champ Bailey level upside. And I don't say that lightly. That's crazy. I don't feel right saying it because I feel a little crazy saying it, but it's not wrong. Like, he could be that good. He doesn't have that. He couldn't be Jerry Rice, as a receiver, like no matter what he did. He couldn't be Justin Jefferson. He could be really good. Like, he could be like a better version of who am I thinking he could be? That's a
You think he's better than Devontae Smith? I know they're kind of different wide receivers, but
that's an interesting comp. I don't think he could. Well, let me think about that. That's probably, like, if you're an optimist, that if everything goes perfectly, he might get close to that. Yeah. But he could be the best corner by far in the next draft class.
Yeah. And
he could be one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, maybe right out of the box if he really concentrates on playing corner. And if you want to occasionally play a little wide receiver, I mean, what the heck? But I really think next year is the year to say a couple of times a year, a big play we need, whatever. But let's really concentrate. For one thing, he's going to wear down. I mean, luckily, he's an amazing athlete and ludicrously well conditioned, but
we can't have him getting hurt this year. No.
And plus, there's a lot of money on the line. I mean, he has a chance to go in the top 3 or 4 picks. Yeah. So, yeah, I wouldn't shut it down completely on the wide receiver side, but I would really be picking my spots, and I'd be really working on. I mean, luckily, he has a guy to go to if he wants to really refine his techniques as a corner. But I mean, it's up to him. It's his life. I'm not going to tell him what to do. But if he were coming to me for advice, I would say, man, you can do anything that your body will allow you to do. You can do anything your body will allow you to do. But think about it this way. If someone says, I'm going to give you $45 million if you concentrate on doing this one thing, or I'll give you $27 million if you do all these different things. Which do you want to do?
I'm going with the money, no doubt.
People think he's going to raise his value. His value can't go much higher, people. If you are an elite level quarterback, do you know how desperately demand is for elite level cornerbacks? The fact that you also are a very good wide receiver doesn't change your marketplace number that much. That almost any of the best corners in the history of the league could have played wide receiver. Rod Woodson could have been a very fine wide receiver, I promise you. We saw Deion actually do it. Champ Bailey messed around with it. Charles Woodson did it a little bit in college. And he played safety. He played nickel. Yeah. He played, nickel linebacker. I mean, Woodson did some of everything. But the guys who can play corner at the elite level could do almost anything that their bodies would allow them to do. Mm-hmm. It's impossible unless you've seen an elite level corner do what they do at the level they do it to understand what a off the charts ridiculous athlete that human being is. It's like being a sprinter and a ninja. And I mean, it's like the things that these people get, it's unbelievable what you're talking about. And then when it's the ones that are like the tall ones that do it at that level, like Mike Haynes, who was 6'2", it's just crazy when you see a guy 6'2", 6'1", 6'3", and Woodson was a big corner. We see those big corners who are also freak athletes. It's like, how is it possible? These are people that could have, if they decided to be Olympic decathletes, would set Olympic decathlon records, right? This is the kind of athletes we're talking about. These are truly world-class athletes. So, yes, he could play wide receiver. And he seems to like it. But if he wants to have the biggest possible pot of money to dive into, like Scrooge McDuck does in the cartoons, he should become the unquestioned number one corner and an unquestioned top 3 prospect, which he has an opportunity to do, and preserve your elite young body. And then, you want to jump in, certain situations. Hey, whatever, be a decoy, occasionally catch a few passes, whatever, cool. But this playing 111 snaps foolishness has to stop.
Oh, Bill. Oh man, the commenters, man, we want to see Travis play every single snap all the time, but I can totally when you're investing $100 million into a player on their second contract, I can totally understand it. So
It's fun. I love seeing him play wide receiver too. We all like doing it, but I have to approach this the way a business is going to approach this. And while we will at sometimes take advantage of it, it's like if you have, I mean, Ndamukong Suh can place kick, right? You grew up playing soccer, but you're not going to say to Ndamukong Suh, "Hey, this year we want you to be out there, knocking through field goals." Like you have to realize specialization is all the rage in football for a reason, right? If you go back, 90 years, everybody played both ways, right? We moved away from that because the game is so much more complex and we played faster. Also, the game is played at a higher rate. I mean, like I said, hence to him playing all that ludicrous numbers of snaps he played in a couple of those games. And I loved it. I love what a mentally, physically tough young man he is to do it. And it just makes me realize that once he puts all of his energy to playing corner, which, I mean, that's what I think will eventually happen someday. My God, what will he become at that point when he has all of his energy into mastering this position? One of the most impressive prospects I've seen in a long time, David.
Man, I love it. We're blessed to have him here at CU, that's for sure. Bill, I always love talking with you, and there's still like just a plethora of questions that I want to ask you about, but again, you've been so gracious with your time tonight. We'll need to connect soon, whether that's next week or a few weeks forward.
Let's do this. I'm going to be writing an article about Colorado anyway, so I'm going to be all up in your DMs and I'll be picking your brain. And I'm going to reach out to Devin as well because he and I have communicated back and forth over his career, and I'm going to congratulate him. I haven't done so. I should do that. And well, if you're watching, congratulations, big dog. He's a terrific human being, in addition to being an amazing recruiter.
I can't wait. Yeah, let's definitely do that. And hey, man, I love having you on this show. Again, thank you so much for your time. Before we sign off, let the people know where to find you and what you got coming up along with that article about Colorado. Anything else you got coming up?
I have a lot happening. So my old friend, James Coburn, Geometrics. If you're interested into the numbers side of football, look up Geometrics. That's at Geometrics. I'm plugging other people, but what the heck? But Geometrics is great. Jim Coburn is great. He's got such a deep knowledge of the data of the game. And if you want to understand that side of the game, which a lot of people sort of poo-poo, but every NFL team, to different extents, depending on which team we're talking about, is dug into it. And part of, I don't want to get into this too much, but part of what eventually drove some of a wedge between Belichick and the other people involved in decision-making in New England was Belichick was resistant to fully dive into certain things in terms of understanding and using some of the data. But he knows everything, right? But I mean, some of that's kind of right. I mean, he knows so much, but so yeah, I'll be working on an article about the numbers side of scouting and football, especially for people who are in things like dynasty fantasy and stuff like that. Knowing those things can actually give you a big old edge. Hint, hint. At Geometrics on Twitter. Then you can find me on Zinni60 Media. I have a series of videos about some prospects I'll be breaking down, particularly small school prospects that you may or may not have heard of. That'll be on Zinni60 Media starting this weekend. I will have articles about, the Nutties, right? So a year-end award, so looking back at the last football season, college football at all levels, from NAIA, Division III, Division II, FCS, and FBS at all positions. And yes, kickers are people too. So yes, I'll be making mention of kickers, punters, maybe long snappers. Oh, don't hold me to that. That's maybe not. I don't know. That's hard. It's hard to really capture good long snap. If someone has good all 22 of long snappers, find your boy. And I'll do long snappers too, but it'll at least be kickers, punters, all the other positions except long snappers. Unless somebody can shoot me some really good tape. But so the Nutties will be dropping also in a few days. And I don't just write about football. I will be doing something in a celebration of the 50th anniversary of hip hop, dealing with the best storytelling songs in hip hop history. That'll also be on Team MBS Media.
Right.
And it's mock draft season. So my first mock draft will come up this Monday. So if you have a special request, a certain team you want to see me do a 7-round mock draft for, hit me in my DMs.
How the Denver Broncos go from 6 picks to 9 picks and still get a quarterback and fill all of their needs.
I will, because you and I are friends, I will knock out a Denver Broncos 7-round mock. But yes, I'll be doing mocks for all 32 teams between now and the draft. So, and then one last thing. So every year, speaking of the draft, the week before that draft, or 6 days to be exact before that draft, starting 6 days before the real draft, I do, together with a crew of slightly disturbed individuals, it'll be the 10th annual, 10 years I'll be doing this now. The Mock Draft Palooza is a live 7-round mock draft with 16 GMs, each one with one AFC and one NFC team, drafting live. And this is where you learn how much you love this stuff, because it's a really 3-day event, really, but it's many hours of work. But I love it, and I'll do it as long as my mind and body holds up. So that will be happening. That's coming up, obviously, later, much later. But if you're interested in being an NFL GM, a fake one who doesn't get paid, but there are semi-fabulous prizes. The winner gets like a $15 gift card or something. I'll figure it out. But
will Vinny Laspinuso be doing it?
Vinny will be somewhere around. I don't know if Vinny's work schedule will permit it because he works weekends. But I'll reach out to him. But yes, first refusal goes to past participants, but we always get a certain amount of new blood. Jolene, who's an amazing young woman, won last year. And yes, I still have your gift card somewhere, Jolene, which I will be getting to you. I just got really busy. I started. Oh, here we go. I didn't forget about you, Jolene. This is yours. But yes. But yeah. So yes, if you would like to put probably a few hundred hours of your life putting together draft boards for 2 NFL teams for the chances to win like $15 gift card, you've come to the right place. But also there'll be an article and you will be celebrated and they'll be, feasting on meats and cheeses. But yes, there's probably some preview articles for the playoffs, right? And last but not least, which I've been working on as soon as you and I get off this, I have to work on preview articles. I'll be writing up an article about the Chiefs' upcoming game. I'll do a post-mortem on the Colts season, if you want to know. And then I'll probably slip in, not a full mock or whatever, but I'll talk about draft needs for the Colts in that article as well. That's what I'm working on, David.
I love it. Guys, to keep up with this, follow Bill Carroll at 11 Bravo 138 on Twitter. Absolutely do that. Bill, we will we'll be in touch soon. Yep. Audience, thank you so much. Sorry I didn't get to highlighting your comments. I'll do better next time, but appreciate the chat as always. Y'all are
Here's
phenomenal.
what I will do. Here's what I will do. If somebody has a super important question, hit me in my DMs. And if somebody wants I shouldn't do this, but I will. Okay. If somebody wants a personalized, in-depth scouting report on a certain player, I don't know. I may have to charge for that. I'll think about it. I
just do an open Q&A next time.
We may do an open Q&A next time. There we go. But if somebody wants something that requires many hours of work, I may do it, but I may decide to charge you something for it. But we'll figure that out later. But yes, hit me in my DMs if you want me to answer questions.
Awesome. That sounds great. Well, Bill, thanks again. And chat, thank you so much for tuning in. Yes. Shout out to just everybody in the chat. I love you guys. Thank you so much, Bill. We'll chat again soon. And as always, go Buffs.